Assalamu alaikum everyone, Jumaa Mubarak. Today is 2-14, 2-14 Valentine's Day. Amazing day for all the single guys out there. Um, but that's what today's video is going to be on. It's a bit of I feel like therapy session for myself, but also I feel like I guess it's something that you guys might also agree with. I'm driving. I'm gonna collect my thoughts and then I'm gonna start talking. Romance is a risk. Not everyone always gets it. I think the big thing I wanted to talk about today was the perception of romance. Well, first of all, marriage is literally the most, like, if you just search up YouTube, if you search up on YouTube, Muslims, Islam, marriage, it's literally the most oversaturated topic on any platform. I can find 15 examples within like 10 seconds, right? And I see the premise, because obviously, like, everyone wants to know, like, oh, how do I get married as soon as I can? And like, we all try to find ways, like, even myself, honestly, like, I'm guilty of this too, because we always want that, at least I'm speaking from the perspective of the guy. It's just like, you see babies and you're like, oh, baby fever, right? Especially once you hit a certain age. I think definitely once you hit, I don't know, like 18, 19, you see all these influencers on Instagram, on YouTube, mashallah, Lambadik, like perfect weddings, right? Or like engagements. I have friends who are engaged, and like I'm incredibly happy for them also. But we try to find ways, like, you'll find every excuse. Like, the scholars will say, like, you make it easy for the kids to get married. They talk to parents, and in your head, like, you bookmark them and you're like, I gotta send this to my mom or dad. Or they talk about, like, oh, like the Sahaba, they got married when they were like 17, 18. You're like, so that's an excuse for you. But also, at the end of the day, it has to do with how well you can support yourself, obviously. And that comes from multiple perspectives, right? Financially, emotionally, mentally. Like, there's a lot of things that go into marriage. And I'm going to be the first to admit, like, I've gone through talking stages, and you learn a lot about yourself. But I think what I wanted to, the point I'm trying to get out, and like I'm telling myself this as well, I'm 22, like, you sometimes feel a pressure to, like, oh, I gotta find someone as soon as possible, and like, you try to find all these different avenues for marriage, and we try to force it, but at the end of the day, like, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who finds that special one for you, right? My dad always tells me, he's like, marriage is the most important decision you ever make in your life, because it really determines, like, the kind of person you become, the kind of kids you have. The person that you choose makes up so much of your life. And there's a lot of, like, red pill folks, or like who are like super alpha males, who are just like, oh, like, you can just reuse and recycle women, like, it's just like, you can find someone if they're not the one for you. And even feminists too, on the other side, is like, I don't need no man, right? But divorce at the end of the day is not only from an Islamic perspective, but even from, if you think about it from an emotional standpoint, like, it's really hard for people. Like, I know people who've gotten divorced, and it's very sad to see that they've gotten, like, truly, like, if you're spending a huge portion of your life, or even you're spending a lot of emotional energy on someone, right? And so when that disappears, and when that, it's hub in English, it's like love, passion, whatever it may be. But when that disappears, like, there's a chunk of you that also dies along with it, right? I've seen myself trying to force relationships or force situations that ultimately might not be good for you. I mean, like, truly, the concept of too good to be true is sometimes, like, very valid. And I'm speaking from the perspective of, like, I'm not married yet. I'm not in a relationship. I'm not speaking to anyone, right? But I think forcing something just because you want to fit in is not the move. That's one part of it. But also, secondarily, like, you shouldn't have to, at least, like, my belief is that you shouldn't have to go looking out, in the sense that obviously you need to work on yourself. And I think one thing I want to mention is, there's a lot of advice out there that honestly isn't very helpful for someone who's like looking to meet someone. What I mean by that is obviously like the things that the shuyukh say, obviously like everything that the traditional advice is very important, like working on yourself, working on your deen, absolutely, like incredibly correct. But also, I think we get kind of, I think it's very hard sometimes when you see so many people around you who are, even if they're in halal relationships, it's just like you feel like a sense of missing out, right? Um, and I think that honestly, like for me, what has helped the most truly is like it's not self isolating, but kind of understanding that things will come. Like fiha khair, right? Like there's always good in whatever you pursue. And if it's not the time for you, like Allah always has a plan for whatever you're up to, as long as you put in the work. I think that's the key part. Just like, I mean, it's not just love. Literally anything in life, whether it's career, education, family, success in all these different avenues, right? It's never guaranteed, or it's not really, like at the end of the day, there's only so much that you can control, like you do your part, but then at the end of the day, it's up to God. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the best of planners. And so you getting worked up about these things doesn't ultimately help you out. And really, at least for me, what I've always felt, and like what my experience has just been that you put yourself in a headspace where you feel upset for something you can't really control. Because like, let's be honest, like 18, 19, 20, bro, like you're not even, unless, I mean, mashallah, if you have a good job, then props to you. But the majority of us are like, we're in school. I can't afford, like, I'm gonna be real, like I can't afford boba sometimes. So how are you gonna really expect to pay the rent, buy your girl, mahr, get her a good ring, go to a honeymoon in Bali, all that stuff? How do you really expect to do that without, a certain level of stability, right? So I, at least, I'm not to say we, because maybe some of y'all are different, but me, I always thought of myself as the one where I'll try to get married as early as possible. And now, like, inshallah, maybe something happens, maybe I find someone, but I'm at peace with the fact that it comes when it comes. Like, I also sometimes I feel like we tend to overestimate our positives, and I mean, I think this is human nature in general. Like, we overestimate our positives and underestimate our negatives. It's a way to feel ourselves, like make ourselves feel better, so I tell myself like, oh, I have like amazing emotional intelligence, and then I might break down one day because I'm like, shoot, like I'm upset because XYZ happened and I don't do a good job. For example, in my case, like I'm someone who could do a much better job expressing my emotions as soon as I feel it, right? These are some things that you learn. You learn over time. And for me, there've been moments where I'm just like, yeah, honestly, if I wasn't able to like handle it just by myself, how am I supposed to handle it when someone else is in the picture as well, right? Because the way that women are created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says like each of you, men and women, have their own pros and cons, in the sense that they each have their own strengths and weaknesses, not pros and cons, sorry. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses, and so on the woman's side they're more emotional, and so from the guy's perspective you can also be a sissy and cry along with her. So that I think is a really big thing that I've like learned about myself. Honestly, like for guys, I want to say like a big goal for me, like that's part of something I'm trying to inshallah achieve within the next 2 years, is like move out, find your own place. Like I had the opportunity to dorm by myself, and a really close mentor of mine said this like 5 years ago when we were still like 16, 17, but he was like, the biggest thing you can do to prepare yourself for marriage and just like life in general is the ability to take care of yourself. I'm lucky because my parents, like, my mom growing up, she was like, there's no gender specific rules, so you're gonna do the dishes as much as I do. You got to do your own. Like I don't understand the concept of guys not being able to do their laundry when they're like 18, 19 years old. Like, even like it's your stuff, like you gotta why would you make your mom do that? You know what I mean? So ultimately, I think having the being able to understand that inshallah there's a plan, like whether you see it or not. There have been so many situations where i've I've felt like, oh, she's the one, right? Like everything seems to match up, this seems amazing, but then something pops up, like, and in hindsight is obviously 2020, and you're like, alhamdulillah, that didn't work out. I would have been cooked, or like, maybe even if it's bitter, it's just like there's something always better out there for you. So taking things as it is. I feel like I'm repeating myself so much, but this is like my way of processing things, because especially around this time of year when you see everyone else, Muslim and non-Muslim, either they're engaged or they're married, mashallah, it's a question that always comes up. So I don't know, that's my 2 cents. Whether you guys agree or not, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys find this valuable, maybe you don't. I enjoy these chats when driving because it makes the time go by quickly, and honestly, like, it helps me um, kind of process my thoughts too. So hopefully you guys found this valuable. If so, please leave comments below. Let me know how you feel, things that maybe you have gained over the years. If you're older, please pray for me. Actually, all of you pray for me. I'm trying to get married, inshallah, whenever you can. As much as all of this that I'm saying, we're all still trying to get married, all right? So inshallah that happens sometime soon. But yeah, thank you for listening along today. I'm gonna focus on driving because it's coming down. Assalamualaikum.